Hi everybody and welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
And I'm Elsie.
And today we're looking at our topic-based writing unit for this month. And this is a writing unit about items that we can't live without.
OK, 所以今天的叙述文我们要讲的是我们不可以或缺的物品。
OK.So if you were going to be stuck on a desert island out in the middle of the ocean, what 3 things would you want to have with you?
如果被困在这个 desert island 沙漠岛上，我要带什么东西 I would want my phone with connection, with internet.
And somewhere to charge it, otherwise you're done after a day.
That's right. So the third thing would be a portable charger.How
do you charge that?
Oh, I still need a plug, right? Okay, so, what about you, Pat?
A knife of some sort to cut things down, trees,
fruit.
Then
I would want a container.
Okay.
For me to get some water.
That would be useful, but I think with a knife, I might be able to make one.
Yeah.
And then one that's going to...or 2 rather, that will come up a bit later in our conversation, pen and paper.
Pen and paper.
Yeah.
So a knife, a pen, and a piece of paper.
And as much paper as I can get. Maybe a pad. Can I say a pad?
But why do you need paper, though?
Well, we'll get to that when we get into this article.
Okay.
So let's get into the topic. This topic is the most essential item in my life. Not 3, as we just mentioned, but one particular thing. And if you look at our magazine, the prompt kind of reads, an often heard hypothetical question, so that's a question about an unreal situation, goes, what would you choose if you were only allowed to bring one thing to a desert island with you?So Elsie and I have kind of discussed that, and the prompt says, you may not take this question seriously, but if you think about it, your answer must be something you carry every day and that you can't live without. So we're asked to write an article about the most essential item in my life. Now, we've got some instructions as to how to write this article. It says you should, in the first paragraph, describe what the thing is, its appearance, and since when have you started using it? So how long have you had this item? And in the second paragraph, give an example that demonstrates how this thing is essential in your life. So explain why you can't live without it. And the article should be 120 words in length.
好，我们这边看到的提示呢，在说的是相信你一定听过这个问题。如果你只能带一件物品去无人岛，你会选什么呢？而想必你的回答也是平时跟你形影不离的东西，所以请你写一篇短文，描述一件生活中你无法缺少的物品。没有它你就活不下去的那样物品。文分2段，第一段要注意你要包含这个物品为何，它的外形，还有你从何时开始使用它。提示当中要你写的，你在你的作文当中都要写到。那第2段呢，要举例说明这件物品是如何在你的生活当中扮演不可或缺的角色。你为什么要选它？它的重要性到底是什么？那文长呢，至少是120个单词。
So in this article, we can guess from the prompt, we'll be using first person. I have this, I think this happened to me. In the paragraph describing the item, we'll probably use simple present, past tense and present perfect to start saying when we started using it, what it looks like. In the second, we could be using present tense to talk about the things we use the item for now, or again, past and present perfect tenses if there's an example from the past that demonstrates why this item is essential.
好，我们在提示当中呢，都是问你自己相关的事情，所以你在写作文的时候，务必用第一人称 I 来做这个人称的叙述。那还有就是呢，因为这是一个假设性的问题，是一个现在事实相反的假设。如果你只能带一件物品去无人岛，你会选什么？所以我们的句型呢，要用到 if 开头的子句 ，if 加上主词，后面接上 be 动词的话，用的是 were。如果是一般动词，你用的是过去式动词。再来逗号之后。 主词再出来一次，后方的助动词 would, could, should, might 你可以选一个，再接上一个原形。那接下来我们还会讲到这个句型，再提醒大家。We'll talk about the sentence pattern later.
Yeah. So this is a narrative essay because we're using narrative to describe a thing and tell a little bit of a story about this thing and why it affects our lives and how it does this. It's a pretty common type of writing you'll often find on exam questions.
没错，那再来我们要注意的是何谓叙述文呢？叙述文是一种运用非常广泛的文体，常出现在大考的作文题目当中哦。常见的类型有第一个，描述经验或事件；第二个，描述物品；第三个，描述人物。那我们这个单元呢，要叙述的是一件生活中不可或缺的东西，所以是属于对物品的描述。
As with all essays, we need an introduction to let people know what the topic is about, a body that gives us all the information about your item and its importance in the 2 paragraphs, and then a conclusion to bring everything together.
没错，再来呢，写什么怎么写，我们要注意哦。英文作文的架构呢，基本上分为引言，也就是 introduction， 文章主体 body， 还有就是结论 conclusion 的部分。那本篇叙述文也是要以这样的架构发展。Introduction 是文章的引言，说明文章探讨的主题跟动机。全文的主旨句也就是 thesis statement， 常在第一段点出来。那在描述物品的文章当中啊 ，introduction 可以有以下几种表示的方法。第一个，直接说明这项物品是什么，像我们的基础范文就是这样子写成的。第二个，使用譬喻或是引述等等的技巧，点出物品的性质，那就像是我们的进阶范文所呈现的。那再来呢，我们要简单说明或比较你和多数人对此物品的看法是什么。
Your introduction should be short and straight to the point. You'll need to introduce the item in the first sentence, maybe the second one. Don't write an introduction that's too long, though. You'll run out of time and space for the body.
没错，不要写太长的 introduction。那再来呢，我们要进到的是 body， 也就是主体。文章的主体呢，必须要叙述许多相关的细节，也就是 supporting details。细节必须和主题相关，而且要让它生动，让人家印象深刻。那依照本次题目的提示呢，这些细节的内容包含了第一种，物品的外观、特色跟背景是你要提到的。再来是生活的实例，包含人、事、时、地、物，如何使用，还有结果。好，也就是要用到5个 WH 还有一个 how 来表示。在叙述的过程当中呢，要特别注意时态的一致性或是连贯性，可以依照时间的先后或重要性等顺序来叙述。
So the body is all the key information. So this is where you can follow the instructions about paragraphs and you make sure your ideas build onto each other and flow from one to the next. And you'll include that information. What is it? Why did I have it? What do I use it for? Where did I get it? When did I get it? Who gave it me? How long have I had it? And all those other questions.
没错，所以你如果可以先把问题写下来，再依序的去回答，你就可以确认你这些资讯都有写到。那接下来就是 conclusion， 文章的结论，可以重申这个物品的重要性，或者是你对生活上所带来的改变和影响。以这种方式做结论，可以使文章完整，也可以呼应到第一段。
So the conclusion should be short and it definitely shouldn't introduce any new information. Wrap things up and link back to your introduction and the main idea of your essay, which is the most essential item in your life. So now let's take a look at making an outline for our piece of writing here. Of course, you'll have to spend a few minutes thinking about what this item is. If you're doing it in an exam, don't think too hard. Don't spend like 15 minutes going, oh, what really is the most important item? Pick something that you know you can write about and go with it. It doesn't matter if it's 100% true as long as you can write a decent article. So let's put this into the right kind of order of sentences and we can connect the sentences and add more details later. So paragraph 1, of course, starts with our introduction. The most essential item in my life is, and we're using the example from our basic sample here, is my smartphone. And this is a clear introduction that tells us about the item straight away.
那我们在想主题的时候，在想那个物品的时候，不要花太久的时间，不然呢，时间是不够用，不等人的。那这边呢，我们看到它最重要的物品呢是 smartphone， 是智慧型手机。它在 introduction 第一句就点出这个东西是它不可或缺的，所以是一种开门见山法。
So now we see the points in the body of the first paragraph that describes the phone, talks about where and how you got it. So A, it's an iPhone 13 with a black phone case. B, it was my 16th birthday present. And C, I've been using it ever since. This is all the description of the phone we need and as well as how long the user has had it. And this is just the outline, of course, so you can add more details in the real article.
是的，所以在刚刚的架构当中，我们看到它有把 appearance， 也就是东西的外形写进去，还有 when did the person get the smartphone， 它是什么时候得到这个东西的，还有用了多久，都有这样的资讯在里头。那再来呢，对于这个物品的描述结束之后，我们要根据提示，因为提示要我们说明这个物品为什么对你那么重要 ，Why is it so important to you？Yeah,
this is what we move on to in paragraph 2. So here we've got some sentences that talk about what the phone is used for, why it's important. The phone is my constant companion throughout the day. A, I use it to listen to music on my way to school. B, I sometimes check social media. C, we're allowed to use our phones in some classes. And D, I use it to chat with my friends and family members all the time. So this is just a list of all the necessary items. A list is absolutely fine for an outline. Of course, when you're writing it, you'd connect these sentences, you'd give a few extra supporting details and so on.
没错，这边有很清楚的4大项目。第一个就是他去上学的时候可以听音乐，再来呢，他可以去看他的社群媒体。那再来第3个就是有些课程是需要用到 smartphone 的。接下来最后一个就是他跟朋友、家人聊天，也是用到这一支智慧型手机。那接着就要到我们 conclusion 的地方咯。
Right, the conclusion is just simple in the outline. I don't know what I'd do without my phone. Yeah, phone links it back to that starting sentence. The most essential item in my life is my phone, so you start and finish with the phone.
是的，所以这边我们看到前后呼应，在 introduction 的地方提到它最重要的东西是手机，最后 conclusion 他说了，我不知道没手机我该怎么样活下去。
So this outline, of course, is just the outline. It's the skeleton you build the rest of the article from. You figure it out first. You can add more details, transitions, and so on when you turn it into the full essay. And this outline makes sure you're following a logical, sensible time structure for your article, the order in which you got the phone, and making sure you write the kind of almost like a chronological order of the day. We say it's a constant companion in the day, so you start, what do I use it for in the morning, during the day, in the evening? That time structure really helps to organize your thoughts and your essay. And it makes sure also that you don't leave out any details. Now, it is easy to include too much information that may not be necessarily related to the point you want to get across, and this is why the outline is important. It's a necessary step because it helps you cut out any information you don't need, or it'll show you where you need to add more information because the detail looks a little thin.
没错，如果呢我们在有限的时间当中要写出一篇作文，有的时候呢会因为紧张或是时间不够，或是分配不佳，可能加进太多的资讯，或是没有写到提示要我们包含的资讯，所以有架构有 outline 是非常重要的。
Okay, we're going to take a short break right now, and when we come back, we'll be reading through our writing samples. Okay, so let's take a look at our 2 writing samples from this unit and start with the basic sample. I'm sure I won't be the only person to give this answer, but the most essential item in my life is my smartphone. It's an iPhone 13 with a special black phone case with pictures from the Demon Slayer manga series on it. It was a 16th birthday present from my parents, as the phone I'd had before was very old. I've been using it ever since. My phone is a constant companion throughout my day. I use it to listen to music on my way to school. I sometimes check social media then too, but I usually prefer to just listen to something relaxing. In some classes, we're allowed to use our phones to look up words, so it's essential for my studies too. And of course, I use it to chat with my friends and family members all the time. I don't know what I'd do without it. So in that article, we can see we get more detail about the phone case in the first paragraph, about it's got a special case on it to do with this Demon Slayer manga series, and we also see there additional details in the second part of the article, in the second paragraph, about using it in class and the phone being important for studies. Now we also have a grammar point to look at there, right at the end of the first paragraph, present perfect continuous tense. We use this grammar pattern to say that an act is in progress, or at least it's continuing in the current time, and also to show how long this has been going on. We give the start date or day or whatever, and it's still going on today. We can actually use present perfect simple in the same way. For example, if you say, I've lived in Taipei for 10 years and I've been living in Taipei for 10 years, these have exactly the same meaning. But this continuous form with the VING is good for active verbs, and it shows that this really is a continuing action, not a state.
这边用到现在完成进行式，那这边强调的是某动作或状态从过去开始到现在的持续性，最多搭配的就是刚刚 Pat 提到的，好像是 wait, stay 或 think 等等，在语义上带有动作持续性的动作。那给同学们一个例句哦 For example, Lydia has been thinking about changing jobs for a few months. 代表 Lydia 她考虑换工作，这个思绪持续好几个月了。
Yeah, if we said Lydia has thought about changing jobs, then we just mean she's had that thought a few times. But if we say she's been thinking about it, it means it's something she is thinking about every day, quite a lot. This is something that never really stops with her, rather than just the occasional, I wonder if I should change jobs. Okay, so that's the basic sample. We've shown that we've got the structure, the outline, and then we add a few more details of that. We connect the sentences up together to make the article flow. Now let's take a look at the advanced sample, and the writer has done something slightly differently here because the story of where the writer started using this actually is used to demonstrate why it's so important. So in kind of the structure is a little different from the first one in that the first one follows the outline very clearly. The second one does a few different things. We'll explain more after we've read it. Advanced sample. There are numerous things I'd want to have with me on a desert island, and there are just as many that I consider essential items that I want with me at all times. However, if I had to pick just one, I'd choose my notebook and pen. There's nothing particularly special about either item. Indeed, I generally buy cheap notebooks and pens because I always need to replace them when the books are full and the pens run out. The notebook covers are plain and the pens aren't decorated with anything. I just purchase the most basic items I can find at stationery stores or even convenience stores in a pinch. I've been carrying these around with me for about 3 years now. The vital aspect of these items is not what they look like, but what I use them for. I love to write, and I'm often struck by inspiration for stories, characters, or scenes wherever I go. When this occurs, I want to jot down my ideas as quickly as possible in case I forget them. The first time this happened was in an art museum. I was looking at a painting when suddenly my brain caught fire with an idea. I rushed to the gift shop, bought a cheap pen and a notebook with Van Gogh's sunflowers on it, and wrote down the idea. That notebook is long gone, but ever since then I've always kept one in my backpack to take down my ideas as they come to me. So you see in this sample, the actual item isn't as important as its use. And the example that shows why having these things is essential is also the history of the item or items. As you can see, we can experiment with structure here in this advanced sample. And rather than following the instructions exactly, you can use them just as a starting point. As you get more confident as a writer, you can do this. But at first, if you're not sure, it's best to stick exactly to the instructions.
是的，我们在刚写作的时候，好，尽量以跟提示为主的内容去写。那接下来如果比较熟悉了，我们可以用另外一个方式，就像是我们的进阶 sample、advanced sample 这里，好，它放比较多的时间在叙述这个东西相关的故事。
So we have some vocabulary from this sample to check out too, some more difficult words and phrasal verbs and phrases to look at. So first we have the word stationary, and here make sure you spell it with the E rather than the A. Stationary with an A just means not moving. It's an adjective, but stationary with an E is a noun and it means pens, pencils, books, erasers, all that stuff you use for school and writing and so on.
是的 ，stationary 这个字啊，它是不可数的，因为它总称文具，所以呢，我们不可以把它变成复数形。那字尾 nery 要特别小心。
So the author says that they buy any kind of items from convenience stores in a pinch. This phrase, in a pinch, means in an emergency. And when we use it in a pinch, we say that something isn't the best choice, but it will do if nothing is available. For example, if you're cooking something and the recipe says, use this kind of oil, only use olive oil, and you go, well, I don't have any olive oil. And the recipe says, well, you can use vegetable oil in a pinch, meaning don't just go out and buy a new bottle of olive oil just for this recipe. You can use vegetable oil. It will do okay. It'll still do the job.
所以他在叙述的是呢，在紧要关头的时候，你可以做的事情，或是你已经做的事情。那接下来还有一个是 jot down. You can jot down ideas, right?
Right. Jot just means to quickly write, and down just means on a piece of paper, on the back of an envelope, in a notebook, whatever. To jot down something is to write it down quickly. Like taking notes. You don't worry about correct grammar or full sentences. For example, if you're in class and the teacher is talking, you jot down a few extra notes, maybe in your textbook, to help you understand. We've got another phrasal verb next, which is to catch fire. Now, this isn't literal. It doesn't mean like the building catches fire, it sets on fire. This is when a person becomes full of excitement and passion. If your brain catches fire with an idea, you go, oh, this is so good. This is such a great idea. I've got to write it down. I've got to tell people about it. You know, it's right at the front of your mind and it feels like it's burning and you've got to do something with it.
My brain caught fire with an idea. 那就是代表你突然点子很多。那接下来呢，还有 take down， 那就是 write down 写下来，也可以说 jot down.
Yeah, this is pretty much the same as jot down. Jot down would be more quickly and roughly. Take down, you're probably doing it with a bit more detail, a bit more care and attention. I'll take down your details means I'll write them out in full. I'll jot down your details, you'll make a quick note. Now, we also have some grammar to look at from this second sample too. We said in one sentence, there are numerous things I'd want or I would want to have with me on a desert island. And then in another sentence, however, if I had to pick just one, I would choose my notebook and pen. Now, Elsie mentioned this grammar pattern earlier on. It's the use of what we call the second conditional. This is unreal or hypothetical situations in the present. And we tend to use it with if plus subject plus a past tense verb in one clause, and then the subject would or could plus verb in the second clause. And of course, you can reverse the clause order. So we could say, for example, if I had $10 million, I could buy one tiny room in Taipei.
那这边呢，我们的作文主题是去无人荒岛，所以它是一个假设非真实的计划，所以必须要使用我们刚刚就讲到的与现在事实相反的假设语气。那再给同学们一个例句哦 If Molly were in charge of the evening's activities, she'd make everyone write a poem and read it out dramatically. 所以如果是 Molly 她去负责晚上的活动，她会让大家写诗，接着夸张的把它念出来。那这里我们要用到 be 动词 be 动词在这个假设语气当中呢，我们会搭配的是 were W-E-R-E 不管主词是谁。
So another piece of grammar we want to look at is the use of in case. The sentence is, I want to jot down my ideas as quickly as possible in case I forget them. This is used to talk about the precautions you take so that if something bad happens and the bad situation is introduced by in case, then we are ready for it, we're prepared, we've done something to make sure the situation isn't bad. For example, take an umbrella with you in case it rains. I'll eat a quick bite now in case I don't have time later.
表示万一呢，有两种方式 in case 加上 that 再加上子句，那 that 是可以被省略掉的。另外一个就是 in case of， 那如果你用到 in case of， 它是一个介系词片语，所以后面要不接名词、代名词或动名词。
So as we should do in writing, we're going to finish this lesson with a conclusion that ties back to our introduction. Elsie and I talked about what items we would have on a desert island, and I, like the writer of our advanced sample, mentioned pen and paper. This is pretty much a true story of mine. This happened to me.
Why would you need a pen and a piece of paper or a lot of paper?
Because I am a writer and I do have ideas sometimes that I need to write down when they catch fire in my brain. This is 100% real for me. Now, what happened was I was in the National Portrait Gallery in Trafalgar Square in London back in 2004. So we're going back 18 years now. And I was looking at a picture, and I did get an idea, and I did run to the gift shop, buy a notebook with a Van Gogh sunflowers picture on, and a pen, and I wrote down that little kind of short story scene. And I thought this is a great thing to have with me at all times. So I kept that notebook until it was full, and then I've bought others and filled them up and got others and filled them up and keep buying new pens and using them up. And even now, almost 20 years later, if you were to go up to my desk upstairs and look in my backpack, there would be a notebook in there and there's a pen in there, and that notebook is half full of writing, stories, scenes, ideas, notes, stuff.
Okay, so you will only choose a knife to survive with?
Yes. And the pen and paper are for my own enjoyment. And if I was on a desert island, I'd want to tell the story. If I were
Interesting.
I'd want people to read about it, like Robinson Crusoe.
Right.
But that is all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening to us today about our topic, about essential items. And we'll talk to you again soon. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie.
And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.